Hello again, everybody. This is Jerry Serino from the Median Podcast. I really appreciate you being here and listening, as always. Ask you to please go to fromthemedian.org to connect with us. That is our site. It has all the episodes on it. And also, please subscribe on any of the podcast apps that you might utilize as well as. And please get on social media and follow us. Just search Cleveland Right to Life. All of your support helps us bring great guests and keep producing this great show. And I'd like you to meet my guest today is Solia Mechling. She's I love bringing young pro-lifers on the show to show everybody that the youth is on our side. I don't know if it's, 60-40, 50-50, whatever. It doesn't matter. But I know that they are out there. I have them on all the time. And Solia is calling from Tennessee. She's a young college student, and she's here to just talk about her passion. So, Leah, thanks for coming on.
Yes, well, thank you so much for having me on your show.
Yeah, absolutely. I love showcasing great young people, and especially at your age, utilize use social media to get out there. Something that is just relatively new was something in my youth we just didn't have. If you had a voice, you had an opinion, it was just yours. Social media allows you to get it out there. And so you actually go by on Instagram, which is where I found you. You call yourself your pro-life bestie, which is interesting. I'll let you explain that in a little bit. But you're also an ambassador for Students for Life, which I love as well. We love their organization. I've had Kristen Hawkins on and many others from Students for Life as well. So first, give me a background. Let's start with the basics. Okay, so here you are, a young person who is putting out there your pro life stance. Tell me about your beliefs. Have you always been pro life? Did you grow up that way? What has influenced you?
Yeah, so I grew up in, of course, the South. I'm from Tennessee, and my mom actually homeschooled me and my siblings. So she kind of played a big role in what we believed, and she just took the Bible to heart and taught us how to love and our values off of the Bible. So I grew up with that traditional, biblical opinion of life is precious, value life. But I wasn't really impacted until one of my close friends, when I was around 8 years old, I actually learned her story of her being born, and her mother was a sexual assault victim when she was 13. And her story always really personally impacted me. And then when I started to get on social media when I was around 14, I came in contact with Turning Point USA and
Hmm.
started my own Turning Point chapter. And through that, and through my mom and other people and amazing people in my life, I started learning these pro life values and what it meant to be a pro life advocate. And then it wasn't until last year that I started posting on social media and started really leaning into the pro life content side of things and then working with Students for Life. And so I really would have to say the biggest things that made me pro life was, of course, that one friend's experience and my mom homeschooling me.
Yeah. Tell me about if you can or if you're able to. I realize there could be some privacy things in regards to your friend's story. So your friend's mother was sexually assaulted when she was 13.
Yes.
Oh my gosh! So tell me about how you learned that and how that all went down as far as you discovering it and your friend's reaction.
Yeah, so my friend, her and her mom never shied away from their story. It was a part of her mom's testimony and her
Mm.
own personal testimony. And so when I was around, I would say 14 is when we really kind of started to talk about it and her, mom's experience and the fact that her mom chose to keep the baby even though she was in a really bad household. And so on her own, this 13-year-old had my friend and went to college, did all of the things. And now on the other side of that, they're just so grateful. And my friend is so grateful that her mom chose life, even though it was really difficult. And even though her mom could have given her up for adoption, she still chose to keep her. And I also have a friend who's also a Students for Life ambassador, with an unplanned pregnancy, and she gave up her daughter for adoption. But I think it just really impacted me knowing that her story, like, she doesn't have any less value just because of her story.
Mhm.
She was still valuable.
Yeah, excellent. So she talks about her experience and shares. So she was, your friend was conceived in rape. Is that
Yes.
the right way to put what happened? And
Yes.
her mother courageously gave life. Now that's what's interesting about that specifically on the life issue is especially young people, that's like the first thing they throw at you as
Yeah.
a pro-lifer. I know when I've done talks on college campuses, the first question is, "What about rape? What about the girl who was raped?" Right? And I understand. I'm sympathetic in a sense
Mhm.
that is a heart wrenching experience for anyone to go through. But yet, um, that didn't impact you in a negative way. You looked at it as, hey, this is, you know, it caused you to be pro-life
Yeah.
in a sense. Have you gotten any feedback from people friends, on campus, whatever, who bring up that point, and then how do you respond?
Yeah, I would say that my family and my close friends all share the same opinions that I do, but when I go to college campuses or, when I'm on my own, a lot of people do bring that up. As you said, it's kind of like the first thing that pops into their head. And so, of course, I share with them that personal story of my friend's testimony and her mom's experience, but also just the fact that that child, that innocent life inside of them, should not be the punishment for the father's crime. We need to be there in support of women that have gone through that traumatic experience, but
Mhm,
putting them through another traumatic experience is not going to erase what has already happened to them. um, and there's, of course, there's different outlets for women, but that 1% also, it's a very small percentage of women that have actually gone through that experience. Unfortunately, the main thing is women just cannot, they feel scared because they feel like they're alone, or they don't feel
mhm.
like they have enough resources, and that's ultimately the main reason why we see abortions happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you had said also that you started a turning point chapter. Give me some feedback or perspective on that because obviously with Charlie Kirk, I guess has it been a year? It's great. Not even I don't even think a year. It's crazy to think that happened. Tell me about what motivated you to say I'm jumping on board with Turning Point. I'm going to start a chapter, and then I would, be interested in hearing how his death affected you.
Yeah, I was around probably 12 years old when I wanted to start a Turning
Mm,
Point chapter. I had a friend who I knew that started a Turning Point chapter, so I was like, sure, let me do this. And
mhm,
it was a kind of a homeschool group of us, and we just kind of did some things for a few years, and then I would go to AmFest, and I would go to a lot of the events that they had, and it was just a great experience of learning all of these new things, how to be able to communicate, networking. It was honestly great opportunities.
mhm,
And then, of course, Charlie Kirk's death impacted me very deeply. I had met him in passing a couple times and always looked up to him as just a great person. And I'll remember exactly the day, the time, where I was, and everything. But I think that challenged me to just live out my faith so much more boldly. We only have one life, so why not live it to glorify God? A lot of people were like, well, didn't you feel fear when Charlie was assassinated? And it's like, no, he would want us to continue to speak about these topics. He would want us to boldly stand. And I had my DMs were flooded with young people saying, how do we join the cause? How do we
mm,
start talking about our beliefs? Like, you would think people would have shied away from this, but I had kids wearing red in their schools for Charlie Kirk to remember him. I had people posting on their stories, thousands of people DMing me, how do we get involved? And so it just impacted me so deeply to further this movement.
yeah, that's great. Love it. I love to hear that our side didn't sort of back down or run away when he was killed. Because I'm, I have kids your age, just so you know my age roughly, and his death impacted me, and it impacted my kids as well. People were just so taken aback by such a good person. I think what was also shocking to me, and if you want to comment on this too, is after he died, the names that he was called: racist, sexist, homo, like, just, he was called every name in the book, and by
Yeah.
people who didn't listen to him, right? I mean, how
Hmm.
did you experience that same frustration? I would think so.
100%. And it's very frustrating because a lot of his clips get taken out of context from people
Hmm.
who already have previous biases. And so when you actually listen to a lot of the things that he said in context, any common sense person would have completely agreed with him.
Hmm.
And we saw just the hatred from the left. We saw the mockery, the Halloween costumes.
Hmm.
But something that I was so proud of our side was just responding with such grace, and the prayer vigils that were all across America. We didn't back down, but we also didn't rise to their level of mockery. And I think we actually won over a lot of the people who are kind of the independent, because they saw the viciousness of the left, and then they saw how the right responded to that.
Yeah. Celia, what are you curious as to, what are your plans for the future, for yourself?
Yeah, well, currently I'm in college
Hmm.
and I'll be graduating next spring. My plans are I would love to work with Students for Life or another pro-life, uh, organization.
Yeah.
I would love to maybe have my own show one day talking about these pro-life values for young people. And I currently have my own business for,
Hmm.
for pro-life things. And so I just really want to continue on in this movement because I feel such a calling here.
Yeah, well, great. Well, I'm hoping that some of my listeners are, and I know they are, part of the pro-life uh, world, and including some great organizations. You're hearing how Celia is so well spoken and all that she's done, even especially at a young age. So, if you're looking for somebody, uh, so you should reach out to Celia. I'll have all her information on fromthemedian.org. You did mention that you have a business, which is another incredible thing that a
Mhm.
young person, and it's also what social media allows you to do.
Yeah.
So, give me some. I'm looking at it here on my other screen, at your other Instagram page.
Mhm.
It's featured.by.solia Mechling.
Yeah.
But tell us about it.
Yeah, so one day I've always loved my conservative values and I've always loved cute clothing. So I went on Etsy and I tried to find something that would match my conservative values and match my, Pinterest girl aesthetic. And so all I found was, no hate, but all these MAGA bro shirts that I just couldn't relate to and couldn't see myself wearing.
Hmm.
And so I felt like there was kind of a need for those girls that still wanted to boldly wear their values but wanted to look cute while doing it. And I realized there was nothing really out there, so I wanted to create that space for girls. And I also think it's just a really easy way to boldly share your values is just wearing a shirt, just wearing a
Hmm.
shirt that says I love Jesus or fight for life. And I've had so many girls reach out to me, thanking me for doing this. And I've just started it, but down the road I would love to give back to pregnancy resource centers and just making Christian conservative values, even more available for those young girls who maybe feel like they're too scared to talk about it
Hmm.
and don't know where to start.
Yeah, no, I love it, and I'm looking at everything here now. Obviously, I'm not a young girl, so but the clothing is very nice, and I think what was appealing to me is I will admit I do come across sometimes on, because I'm so connected to the Turning Points and the Students for Life and Live Action and all the different pro life people and groups that I'm connected to on social media. I do come across some really good Christian pro-life people who post some really great things. I love Jesus and things like that. And then you connect with them, you follow them, whatever. And then next thing they're posting pictures in the skimpiest of clothes you can imagine. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you just posted about Jesus in pro life, and those are wonderful. And then you're posting this. So when I see what you're talking about, I think it's really great, because I think it's an example that needs to be met. Do you see that hypocrisy too, or is it just me that I notice that too? I don't know.
No, 100%. I see it, and it's unfortunate,
Hmm.
because you see a lot of this stuff, and it just kind of sends mixed signals, especially to a lot of the young girls in these spaces. And so that's why I wanted to make sure that my clothing was still modest,
Hmm.
and hopefully down the road, I'd love to make some even more business ventures and keep them modest and keep them for the young girls. My age range is from 12 to 32, and I want to make sure that every single person of any age will feel comfortable wearing my clothes. And so that also isn't just from a perspective of, oh, I'm a conservative, so that should
Hmm.
be my values. It's my personal relationship with God and saying that, okay, I'm posting myself on social media for all of these girls to see. How can I be a better representation of Christ? And something that my dad said, and it just kind of rings true, is make sure people are listening to you, not just looking at you. And so that's something that has always really impacted me, because am I just catching you with something you're going to look at, or are you actually going to listen to the message that I'm trying to share?
Yeah, well, you have a good dad, and it sounds like a great mom as well. And I will just as a note, when I see those types of posts from people like that, I instantly unfollow them, and just because they lose credibility with me, right? Sorry, you just do, and there's no need for it because as Celia is showing here, there's plenty of beautiful clothing that you could look great in without being immodest and the like, and a poor example as well. Um, what do you get a general feeling out there among the youth? Because I started the show talking about how, hey, I love showcasing young people who are pro life and conservative and are proud to speak about their faith. But we don't really truly know. I mean, if you go to most college campuses, they're pretty nasty. I mean, my kids, I've been there, and some of the things going on are insane. Um, do you think that we're truly the minority, or they're just louder? I don't know.
I think they're louder. I know a lot of people in my own college campus that are pro-life, but are just hesitant to share those values. I think we are growing. There's a lot of more people willing to post on social media, willing to talk about their beliefs. I mean, I just went with to the March for Life this year with Students for Life, and it was led by Gen Z. It was led by all of
Hmm.
these young people showing up, choosing to walk and to step out in faith and boldness. And so I think our numbers are growing. I still do see a lot of the college students leaning liberal, leaning towards abortion, but I think it's due to a lack of education. I think it's because they really don't know what an abortion is, or what it means, or what the ramifications are. That I think they just hear the noise and they hear all of what the media tells them. They just kind of rush that way. So what I try to do is just try to educate them through trends and through social media. And I've actually been able to impact a lot of people, saying, I really didn't know what an abortion was until you kind of broke it down in this way. And so I think it's just a culture shift. Once we shift the culture, once we fully educate these people on what an abortion is, we'll still see that majority that just doesn't care, that is vicious, but I think we will start reaching the hearts of young people.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen some videos out there, and I want to say it's by Live Action, but it could be anybody, in which they have an iPad and they show people, hey, are you pro life, pro choice? They say, oh, pro choice, if they do, and they show them a video of, well, this is what happens. Have you seen this in an abortion? And people are shocked by it, because to your point, they don't know, and you're thinking, abortion's been around for how many decades, and they didn't know, but then they see this and they're kind of made aware. So I would agree with you. I think that education is a big part of it. What about politically speaking? Have you ever thought about getting into politics, or you maybe prefer to stay clean and stay, an influencer in other ways?
I think I feel like I would be more impactful, kind of just educating people and going to those college campuses
Hmm.
and being there. I don't think that I would be cut out for a political career. That's not to say never. I could be shocked one day and the Lord calls me into that, but I just feel like I wouldn't be able to serve the Lord as faithfully doing that.
Yeah. And curious too, I was thinking another question. I have seen a lot recently about the number of people that are being baptized, converting, that they're
Mhm,
showing record numbers. I'm Catholic, and I've seen there's been a lot out there about a number of people that are being converted or
mhm,
practicing the faith or whatever, and it's in every denomination.
mhm.
Do you think social media has an impact on that, especially the young people? Because I do see a lot of people your age that are really, really strong in their faith, and it's so great to see.
I think it is an impact of social media, but I also think it's just the world we live in today. You know, a lot of people see the news, see the events that are going on. A lot of people were impacted by what's going on with Charlie Kirk. And I think social media can impact in a good way, but I'm Gen Z, I know. Social media is fake a lot of the times. It increases
Mhm.
your anxiety, it's addictive, it's all of these things. And so, being Gen Z, when you're kind of in this digital age and in this digital life, you want to escape that. You kind of want to get out of that. And I think churches have been a place where they show you the deeper meaning of life. You know, we're more anxious than ever. We're more depressed. We don't know the meaning of life. And then when you go into these churches, they're like, you were created for a purpose. No wonder you're so lonely and you're so anxious. You know, you see the news and you see the media and all this stuff. And they truly remember people and remind us what our purpose is, what we want to do in this life, and what we were created for. And I think that's what people are craving. They're craving that life, that piece of Christ that they're missing. And then once they go into those churches and once they get baptized, you know, they're truly living out that new life.
Yeah, amazing. No, good, really good point. I didn't really think about it that way, and that's a very, very good point. So thank you for that. Now I'm noticing here that you're wearing camouflage. So is that among your? It doesn't look anything like you're. Well, actually, in this one picture here, you're wearing camo. So tell me about that. Are you a hunter? Do you just like camo being from Tennessee? Do you hunt? Like what's your thing?
So I've actually never hunted, but I do have a hunting family, and
Hmm.
I like I said, I've grown up in the South. I grew up shooting squirrels and doing all the things, and so I shoot. I've never really hunted, but yeah, I like it because I think it's cute, but I also do just I'm very outdoorsy, very country person. Love to ride horses, all the things.
Oh, okay. Excellent. So yeah, so the camo looks good. It does look pretty cool in general for everybody. So that's fantastic. And well, I got to say it's really been a pleasure talking with you. You're wise beyond your years, quite obviously. I'm always jealous because I think back to myself when I was, your age and my kids' age, and I'm like, they're so much more mature than I ever was. So very impressive. As you are, and compliments to your mom and dad as well, who obviously did a great job. And I really appreciate what you're doing out there fighting for life and conservative values. As we sign off here, share with everybody, if you could, where people can connect with you, your personal site on Instagram and your business one.
Yeah, so for my personal, it's pretty much just Solia Mechling across the board. You can find me on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, pretty much all of the things. And then for my business, it's just featured by Solia Mechling. And then I have the link in my bio on my Instagram of where you can shop all those products.
Yep. Yeah, I'm looking at it right here. So yeah, please go to Solia. That's spelled Solia
Yeah.
Meckling. All of this information will be on fromthemedian.org. So you'll be able to find it there if you're not able to remember or write it down. And yeah, you can go and you can shop. And I always say to everybody, please patronize good pro life businesses and organizations as best you can, because we all need things, right? We all need clothes, we all need jewelry or whatever it is. Might as well buy it, or coffee, buy it from a pro-life organization. So I would encourage everybody to do so. Salia Meckling, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I've loved talking to you.
Yes, my pleasure. And thank all of you for listening to this episode of From the Median podcast. We will see you next time.